Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we will learn about nationalism in India. This is the second chapter of the 10th grade history NCERT curriculum. I will cover this chapter in 4 videos, and at the end of each video you can find notes in a question answer format on the topics covered. So today we will do the first section, and the topics covered will be emergence of national consciousness, developments during the early 20th century, effects of First World War on India, idea of Satyagraha, various Satyagraha movements across India, Rowlatt Act and Rowlatt Satyagraha, Jallianwala Bagh Massacre, Khilafat movement, planning of non-cooperation movement. Now, to understand this chapter, we have to answer these questions. What is a nation state? What is nationalism? So basically, to define a nation state, we can say that it is a state in which the great majority of people share the same culture and are conscious of it. It gives them a sense of belongingness. For example, if you're from India, you will hold an Indian passport. You relate to your national flag, anthem, or emblem. And if you have to go out of India, you need permission or visa, right? Now, why is this? Because now we have set boundaries, which clearly is defining nation states. However, the time period we are talking about, there was no India. We had an Indian subcontinent, and it was under various kings. The first map, which you can see, is just for representation's sake. This is not a factually correct one, but just to make you understand. Now, if you see, like the Maharashtra, which we know right now, is basically under the Maratha. Parts of Madhya Pradesh, parts of Karnataka are also under the Maratha in this map. Now, this will keep changing as there are invasions and expansions. So people have no other commonality other than the loyalty to the king, which again can change anytime, right, on the basis of invasion and expansion. But after the British conquest, most of us were under the colonial rule, as visible in the second map. So to answer the question, how did this national consciousness emerge in India? Now we have a common enemy, the British. So we can definitely say that the growth of modern nationalism is connected to the anti-colonial movement, the anti-colonial sentiments. The sense of being oppressed under the British colonialism gave us a common ground to share a bond that brought different groups together. India, it's a diverse place, right? But they all had one common enemy, right? Now, each class and group had a different impact of colonialism. Their experiences were also different. Their idea of freedom were also different. For example, a farmer would want access to agricultural land, would want less rent, less tax, freedom to grow whatever they want. For tribals, they would want access to forests. For urban population, maybe they want good education, access to public jobs, etc. All these groups had different grievances against a common enemy, the British. But at a larger scale, all of them wanted freedom. And of course, Gandhi and Congress took the leadership to unify these groups into one national movement. But you have to understand that this unity developed over a period of time and was not free from internal conflicts. So in the beginning of the 20th century, nationalism was spreading to new areas and social groups. Now, new methods of protests and participations were emerging. Now, what was the economic and political condition at that time? Now, as a colony of Britain, we were forced to participate and provide support to Britain in the First World War. So the question here is, what were these economic and political effects of the First World War in India? So, of course, we had to pay for their defense, right? Like whatever expenditure they were making on their defense, we were the ones who were paying for it by, paying higher taxes in terms of custom duties, income taxes, or we were giving out war loans. Then the prices of all the commodities and goods were also increased, again to finance the war. So between 1913 and 1918, you can see that, the prices are very high. This is the time period of the First World War. Now, people were forced to participate in the war. So forced recruitment. Basically, abled, fit men were forced to participate in the war. A lot of times this would mean peasants had to go and fight. This would again mean that there will be less agricultural production and can have shortage of food. Additionally, natural calamities like crop failures and epidemic like influenza were also killing millions of people. So all this created a lot of discontent among people. Now people were rebelling. Like, it was not a very inclusive kind of rebellion, but we have seen that there are a lot of rebellions here and there, like 1857 revolt, Indigo Revolution, tribal movement. But it was not enough. And what was needed was a much bigger movement. So Gandhi ji became the face of this larger national movement. He came from South Africa in 1915 and he brought along the idea of satyagraha. Now, what is this idea of satyagraha? It meant a mass agitation which emphasized the power of truth and the need to search for truth. Gandhiji believed that through truth and non-violence, we should persuade the British to stop oppressing us. We do not need to use aggression or physical force. Now let's discuss source A. Now here Mahatma Gandhi is saying that satyagraha is not passive. A lot of people might believe that, requesting for something, it shows your weakness. But what he's trying to say is that it is not about weakness. It is not a weapon of weak people, Satyagraha is not passive. It involves active, courageous resistance. For example, if somebody slaps you, the first reaction would be to slap them back. Right? That is the easy way out. But the courageous and difficult thing would be to forgive them. Right? So that's what satyagraha was all about. It requires inner strength, not physical power or violence. We should use truth and love, not hatred or harm. It aimed to change the opponent through moral force, offering a powerful, peaceful way to resist injustice. Now, it was not just a theory. Mahatma Gandhi did put this idea of satyagraha to practice. So in 1917, in Champaran, Bihar, he supported peasants against oppressive indigo plantation system. So here again he used satyagraha. Then in 1917 in Khera, Gujarat, where he supported peasants demanding revenue relief due to crop failure and plague. And in 1918, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, where he led satyagraha among cotton mill workers demanding better wages. Now, what were the British doing this time? They were definitely planning and plotting to make our lives more difficult. So they came up with the Rowlatt Act in 1919. This act gave the government power to repress political activities and detain political prisoners without trial for 2 years. This act has been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. So Gandhiji saw it as an unjust and launched a nationwide satyagraha. So any historical event will have a cause, course and consequence. Please remember these 3 C's. So now we are talking about the Rowlatt Act of 1919. So you know what happened during the Rowlatt Act, like what was the clause of the Rowlatt Act. That became the reason for the satyagraha, the Rowlatt Satyagraha. Okay. Now what was the course or what happened during the satyagraha? Of course, if it is unjust and if we want to do a satyagraha, what are we going to do? We are going to have a protest. So there was a hartal which was observed on 6th April 1919. Then there were rallies across cities, railway workers went on strike, shops were closed. Now again this was met with repressive actions by the British. The British clamped down on the nationalists. So they stopped Gandhi from entering Delhi. There were a lot of national leaders who were arrested in Amritsar. And again, the police fired on a peaceful procession on 10th April, which triggered violent protests. So now a peaceful satyagraha has become an aggressive violent protest. On the other hand, around the same time, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place, which can also be considered a consequence of the Rowlatt Satyagraha. Now, martial law was imposed because of all the aggression and violence around the cities, and General Dyer took charge. What is martial law? Martial law means basically that the military rule will prevail and the civil liberties will be dismissed for that duration. On 13th April 1919, the day of Baisakhi, large unaware crowd gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar. Now people were unaware about the martial law and hence they came for the Baisakhi fair. And it was also a reason to protest against the repressive Raul attack, like they were coming together, to protest. General Daya blocked all the exits, opened fire without warning, and killed hundreds of people. There was no way to escape. In fact, he did accept that this firing was to produce a moral effect on the people of India, to create a feeling of terror and awe in the minds of the Satyagrahis. Now, of course, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre created anger among people. So definitely protest erupted in many North Indian towns, to which the British government responded again with a brutal repression. So they humiliated the Satyagrahis by forcing them to rub noses on the ground, crawl on the streets, and do salam to all the British sahibs, beating them. And they were also bombing villages, etc. Like specifically Gujranwala in Punjab, now which is Pakistan, So Gandhiji had to call off the movement due to the spread of violence. Also, he felt that this satyagraha was limited to the cities and towns mostly. So he felt that there is a need to launch a much more broad-based movement in India, especially by bringing the Hindu and Muslims together. He thought to take up the Khilafat issue, which turned into the Khilafat movement. Now, what was this Khilafat movement? After Turkey's defeat in the First World War, they were expecting a harsh treaty, and they believed that the spiritual head of the Islamic world, the Caliph, his temporal power will be taken away. Temporal power is basically the secular authority. So to defend the Caliph's temporal power, a Khilafat committee was formed in Bombay in 1919. Muslim leaders like Muhammad Ali, Shaukat Ali, they joined Gandhiji. Now Gandhiji saw it as a way to unite Hindus and Muslims in the national movement. Some Congress leaders, they were not happy to take up Turkey's issue, but at Calcutta session of Congress in September 1920, Gandhiji convinced other leaders and he said that, we have to start this non-cooperation movement and we have to support the Khilafat as well as Swaraj. Swaraj is self-rule. And then he gave his reasons and they had to accept and hence started the non-cooperation movement. So non-cooperation movement is the umbrella term. Under it, the first event was the Khilafat movement. But why non-cooperation? Gandhiji had mentioned in his book Hind Swaraj, which was written in 1909, that British rule is possible only because of our cooperation, and if we stop cooperating, we will become independent. He proposed 2 stages of non-cooperation movement: surrender of government titles and boycott of civil services, army, police, courts, legislative council, government schools, foreign goods, which were often seen as the symbol of Western economic and cultural domination. And the second stage was, if repression followed, they will launch a full civil disobedience campaign. Now again, some Congress members were reluctant to boycott the council elections, which were scheduled for November 1920, and they feared that the movement might lead to popular violence. However, at the Nagpur session of Congress in December 1920, they reached a compromise and non-cooperation was adopted. So that's the end of this video. You will find the notes and stay tuned for part 2. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.